laugh. They just couldn't believe they were about to die in one man's effort to get a huge palm tree sized penis and boys to feed him grapes while reclining on pillows forever. Muhammad Yusuf Yasser smiled with a look of ecstasy, then said, "Well, time to become giant." Right when Yusuf was about to kick the cop car into overdrive and go out under hail of bullets like Wally and Thayer had, Ziad shouted out, "Having a big penis is nothing, brother. It's a bother, brother. Really, believe me, it's more trouble than pleasure." Yusuf Yasser laughed and said, how do you know?" Ziad Jabir thought desperately and said, "Believe me, brother, I know. Allah blessed me well down there already. Besides, it gets in the way of, wiping." "So," said Ziad, said Yasser, "can't you grab the thing and lift it up out the way when wiping? If you can't, ever heard of the soap and the water, brother?" Ziad Jabir desperately shouted, "Hadith has Muhammad saying that since Christians and Jews don't dye their hair, we're to do the opposite of Christians and Jews. Guess what, brothers? Christians and Jews use toilet paper and they use the soap and the water. So we aren't even to use soap and water if we get our big dicks shitty. Just use dirt, like Quran says, if there's no water around." Yusuf Yasser rolled his eyes and said, "It's only if there is no water for ablution are we to then use dirt. And it's not dirt. It's not dirt, but clean dirt, clean soil, brother." "What the burning fire is clean soil? How would you know it was clean?" shouted Ziad with desperation, hoping he could keep the three of them from entering a hail of bullets. Yusuf Yasser thought and said, "Sand? Sand would be clean soil, I think." Yusuf Yasser turned and faced the line of death awaiting them. And said, "Time to get the virgins." He was just about to put the stolen cop car into drive again, when suddenly he and Mahbub cringed when Ziad desperately shouted out, "I don't believe in Allah, and I don't think I ever did. I think Muhammad was being squeezed not by Jibril in that cave when Muhammad said when he couldn't read. I think he was being squeezed by the shaitan. Muhammad did think he was possessed by a demon, and you can't deny that, brother. He even climbed a hill to throw himself off to try to free himself from it." Muhammad, Yusuf Yasser, and Mahbub suddenly turned around and looked at Ziad Jabir with horror in their eyes. Ziad then shouted, "I looked at that CD we picked up in that place near Seattle. It didn't really register with me of just how stupid Islam is until you started shooting Atif, who I know was intelligent and wanted to believe in the truth. You killed a pious man for a religion that says it's okay to rape women in front of their disbelieving husbands." Yusuf Yasser couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. Mahbub was just looking down, silently putting pressure on his bullet wound to try to stop the pain and bleeding. "Can you believe this, Mahbub? Can you believe this?" shouted the horror-stricken Yasser. "Do you see just how satanic those CDs are? Kubashi has to die. Because of him, Ziad is going to have his beautiful skin burned off and replaced daily throughout eternity in hellfire. Mahbub continued to look down. He then said, Yasser, I think Ziad might be right. Islam is nothing but a fantasy. A stupid, deadly fantasy that only leads to making those who believe in it look like evil, crazy dummy. And face it, we've been acting like evil, crazy dummy for a long time. You know it, brother. Yusuf Yasser felt as though he had just been stabbed. He cried out, shouting, No! Don't say that! Shaitan! Shaitan has gotten into both of you! He's not in your noses! He's in your brains! Right now, in your brains! You are now both kuffars, destined for hellfire! Mahbub looked up and said sadly, I'm sorry, Yasser. Muhammad, he was what... I'm sorry, Yasser. He was what the kuffars say he was. He was... wacko. And evil, pedophilic, and pedophilic, and thought inanimate objects talked to him. Thought the black stone of Kaaba gave him salutation even. It was like he was on some kind of LSD. He was a word-mongering wacko using our sex drives to fight for him. It's hard to think straight when you're thinking about sex promised to you, even if it's a lie. I just acted like I was on fire for Allah. Yeah. I just acted like... Yeah. I just acted like I was on fire for Allah. So you wouldn't kill me, because I know you have such a strong faith in Muhammad. I'm sorry, brother. Me also. I'm sorry too, said Ziad, with penetrating eyes of terror fixed on Yusuf Yasser. Yasser looked at the sad-faced Mahbub. Then looked at the sad-faced Ziad. Yusuf Yasser's eyes filled with tears. Then he wailed, as if in great pain. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. You have to be lying. You have to be. You are testing me, aren't you? Allah's testing me. You're nothing but jinn, aren't you? You're jinn, evil jinn, trying to stop me from entering Jannah. You're trying to damn me if I agree with you, right? When I'm so close to Jannah. Allah save me. The cops blared out over the speaker for them to give themselves up. Yusuf looked at the gun in his hand. He wondered if he had enough bullets to do what Muhammad had commanded him. Which was to kill those who got out of Islam. I loved you, both of you, like sons to me. You're nothing to me now, he hissed with building fury. Suddenly, as he looked at the canyon rim behind him in the mirror, he got an idea. He put the car in drive and immediately turned the wheel while stepping on the gas. A few bullets from the cop cars rang out, but when they saw where the car was headed, they quit shooting. The car spun about a little on the snow, then started bouncing on the potholes and bumps as it made a straight line for the Snake River Canyon. The car spun about a little. Yeah. What are you doing, brother? Shouted Mahbub. Yusuf totally ignored the question and instead started reciting Quran 9, 38, 39, and 111, the same scriptures the young trucker had recited before destroying the DOT scale house. No, shouted Ziad in horror. He's heading us No, shouted Dion in horror. He's heading us for the canyon. He's going to take us over the edge. Both Ziyad and Mahbub tried desperately to escape the car by jumping out, but the snowy terrain was so hilly and bumpy that they were tossed away from their only means of escape. The stolen cop car was gaining speed, and the edge of the canyon rim was fast approaching. In desperation, Mahbub tried to shoot Yasser, but the bouncing was too violent. He could only shoot the ceiling. The cop car continued in its suicidal trajectory, almost careening onto its side a few times. Mahbub would have shot Yasser, but there was now a clicking sound from his gun. Please stop, Yasser, begged the horrified Ziyad, but the stolen cop car was fairly flying as it neared the cliff. As Mahbub frantically fumbled, attempting to open the door, he suddenly felt his heart coming into his mouth. A feeling of being incredibly light filled his senses. He looked to the side and saw the snowy ground below him. Only was hundreds of feet below him, with nothing but air between him and it. For a brief moment, he actually felt like he was flying. The pain of bullet wound in his shoulder just faded quickly away as death approached along with the beautiful sunrise. As a matter of fact, the pain from the gunshot in his shoulder wasn't registering in his brain at all. As the car launched off the canyon rim, with him flying along inside it, beside it, because he jumped out, beside it. As Mahbub and Ziyad sailed into eternity, their lungs depleted of air from their long, piercing screams, plunging to the rocks and icy water below, Yusuf, Yasser, let out the loudest ever Allahu Akbar. And that ends that story. And you know something? Should I quit here? Well, anyway, this next story I'm about to read is called Oh That My Adversary Had Written a Book. Oh, that my adversary had written a book. Yeah, I guess I'll read it here. Yeah, okay. Back in his truck, Daniel noticed that it was time to get the wheels rolling. He started up the engine, watching the dials, and said to Sally, well, Afifa or Robin Wood or whatever your name is, it's time to get moving. I sure don't know where your Aloha snack bars are. Maybe there was a change of plans. Oops. I guess I'll read a little further here. Yeah. Maybe there's a change of plans. But you should know that if you carried out their orders, you'd have to do a lot of explaining if a cop showed up now. And I don't think batting those pretty baby blues would help you much either. As Daniel moved the truck onto the road out of the snow, he watched the sunrise over the mist. Then he stopped so he could retrieve the rusty chain that he had run over previously. As he was securing the chain in the chain holder, he suddenly realized that he left his guns back in the cabin with Sally. Daniel prayed, then moved cautiously around his Peterbilt. Glancing skyward, he sighed. If it ends here, so be it. Precious in the sight of you are the death of your saints. Not my will, but yours.